You are listening to Flop Culture, a podcast all about our favourite flops. I'm your host, Fionnuala. I hope you're well. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode on High Fidelity. One of my fave watches of the year for sure. Please watch it over Christmas. It will make my year and I know it will make yours. It's really, really good. Thank you again to Sunita for joining me. If you haven't listened yet, maybe you're waiting for the video episode, I've got great news. It's live. It is now on YouTube. A little bit of a delay, but it's there. If you go to Fionnuala, J-A-Y, Fionnuala J on YouTube, you will find the full video podcast there. And I hope you really enjoy it. In the spirit of Christmas, you know, we're forgetting about the news. We're forgetting what time it is, what day it is, and we're just getting straight into the flop this week. I really hope you enjoy. Christmas movies. Generally, they're hitting key themes. Love, the true meaning of Christmas, family. One movie manages to encapsulate all three while still being one of the most divisive Christmas movies of all time. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic when I say that. Joining me to discuss The Family Stone is author Vicki Notaro. Enjoy. Vicki Notaro, you are very welcome to Flop Culture. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Tis the season. I'm thrilled to have you, and I'm thrilled to chat about your book, which we will talk about later, but we're here to talk flops first because tis the season. What have you chosen today to talk about?
I've chosen the iconic film, which is a flop to some, a bop to others, but kind of terrifying all around. It's The Family Stone.
The Family Stone, yes. I don't think I've ever had as many responses to a story or a topic when I put this on my own story that you were watching it and you said you were doing your research, and I put it on my own story, and immediately I got an influx of messages of people being like, it's not a flop, I love it, blah blah blah, and then you had the other people being like, hated this movie, so depressing, no idea how anyone watches it. How did you come across it? When did you first watch it?
You know what? I think I saw that in the cinema.
Okay.
Many moons ago.
Classic.
I think I did, and if I didn't, it was very soon after. Maybe I got it on DVD. I love Diane Keaton. So,
who doesn't?
And I adore Sarah Jessica Parker. Who doesn't? So I was very interested in it at the time. And in a post-Love Actually world, I was very into a Christmas, what I thought would be a rom-com. And it kind of had a Nancy Meyers vibe in terms of the aesthetic, the ensemble cast, and I was like, this is going to be right up my street. And I think when I first watched it, I loved it. I was a teenager, or I was quite young. I didn't think it was, what year did it come out? It's like
2005.
So I was quite young. You know, it didn't really occur to me just how savage parts of it are. And I really liked it. And then I kept rewatching it, especially when it came on streaming. And then I remember watching it with my now husband, probably 10 years ago, maybe our first Christmas together, and him being just absolutely horrified by it. Like, completely
I will
horrified.
say, this isn't a man's movie. You know what I mean?
No.
I don't think so.
Even though the men in it are quite lovely, like the dad's quite lovely.
Yeah.
But I remember him being like, are you crazy? Like, this is an insane film. I don't want to give too much away, but mad shit happens. And then I kind of I obviously read the discourse on the internet and kind of was looking at it with fresh eyes and going, okay, I can absolutely understand why this wasn't a commercial hit. It wasn't quite a flop, but it wasn't, you know, it didn't do great when it came out, despite the all-star cast. But I can understand why people hate it. And I think you have to get through a lot of the painful parts to get to the real magic.
Yeah.
Which is kind of Christmassy in itself. No?
Oh my God. There's a reason why you're an author. What a beautiful metaphor. I'm obsessed with that. Obsessed.
But like, it's about family at Christmas, which is complicated to say the least.
Yeah, I think in some ways when we talk about Christmas movies, and like obviously at Christmas, a lot of magic, a lot of, you know,
a lot
using
of children.
a lot of children using your imagination, whereas like this is like realistic, in parts, realistic adult actually speaks to situations that people probably can relate to a lot more.
It's very much about Christmas for grown-ups.
Yes.
And in a way that, you know, you have this kind of, they're not an unusual family, they're actually a very normal family, they're very like kind of average family. But maybe in 2005 they weren't. Like there's a gay couple, they're talking about adopting a baby, one of them's deaf, and you know, they're very liberal family, and then into it comes this conservative, prim and proper woman played very against type, I think, by Sarah Jessica Parker, who we're so used to being whimsical Carrie. And she is just insufferable to start with. But you feel terrible for her because they're such a close-knit family. There's 5 kids. I think there's 3 boys, and 2 girls. And The sisters are, one is Rachel McAdams. I think it was one of her very early roles around the same time as Mean Girls.
She's brilliant in
She's
this.
a wagon.
Oh, she's a wagon. But again, speaks to her as an actor that she's so good at being an absolute witch, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like.
And then the other sister is the lady from Twilight, who other people might remember as being the lady with no face from Grey's Anatomy.
Yes!
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
I have no idea
Suzanne
of her
is
name.
the character's name. I'll look it up.
I have no idea of the actress's name, but she's the mom, she's the mom of the Cullens in Twilight.
Yeah.
And she is No Face Girl in Grey's Anatomy. And she's lovely. She's the nice sister.
Sarah Clark.
I mean, that's a very forgettable name, Sarah. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Sarah.
But you have a very memorable face considering she had none in Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
So good for her.
Correction corner, friends. I don't know where I got that original name, and Vicky couldn't remember her name either, so she wasn't able to correct me, which is fair enough. But it's actually Elizabeth Ann Reeser. Sorry to her. Also in The Haunting of Hill House, and she's excellent in that. Perfect.
And then the brothers are played by, the two well-known ones are Luke Wilson, who I just find delightful. Delightful.
Yeah.
And your man Dermot Mulroney.
Oh, edible.
So I don't fancy him.
What?
I know, it's kind of... But in my best friend's wedding,
that
which most people will know him from, he's just really smarmy and like, he looks like he's made out of wax.
Okay.
Like he's permatanned, the black hair. I mean, he's handsome. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And he's actually even more handsome as Everett in The Family Stone. He's kind of a bit more rugged. But he wouldn't do it for me. I'd be far more into Luke Wilson now. Yeah, it is Luke, isn't it? Yeah, Luke Wilson.
Interesting.
I kind of fancy the Da.
Yeah, the Da is pretty good in this as well.
Yeah.
See, I think I prefer Luke in this as his character.
Yes, he's lovely.
Because Everett's just like, I feel like he doesn't know where he stands on anything. You know what I mean? As we see by the end of the movie.
He said, the Da says, I fear Everett does not know who he is.
And I don't think he does.
He doesn't.
What is this film about? Feel free to spoil, but this is your spoiler warning if you're listening and you haven't watched The Family Stone or you're planning on watching it for the first time over Christmas.
I feel bad for producer Adam because I'm going to wreck it for him.
Adam has everything ruined on him every episode, so really sorry. He's giving me a thumbs up here. He's fine. What happens in The Family Stone?
So it is about Everett, the oldest son of the Family Stone. He is bringing his girlfriend Meredith home for Christmas to meet the family. They're extremely close-knit, kind of rude. You know, the kind of family that you'd be kind of terrified to meet. And the reason he's coming home and the stone in question is he's looking, their name is Stone as well, but he's looking to ask his mother for his grandmother's engagement ring to propose to Meredith. Now, they're all kind of bitchy to Meredith from the get-go because Rachel McAdams' character has decided that she doesn't like her. She's met her once, decided that she's up herself and isn't a fan. So they're all kind of like bitchy from the get-go. And Meredith, Sarah Jessica Parker's character, has this tick where she's clearing her throat a lot. She's gone, that she's obviously an anxiety, it's her anxiety tell. And it's just delightfully awkward to begin with. But she is a bit of a dope from the get-go. She won't sleep in Everett's bed. She's making everybody feel uncomfortable. So basically, everyone is so mean to her that she rings her sister, Claire Danes, and says, please come and spend Christmas with me. They hate me. So Claire Danes comes and all sorts of mad shit happens in that, like, loads of fights happen without really meaning to, which I guess is what happens at Christmas. Meredith says the wrong thing every time she possibly opens her mouth, but Rachel McAdams, Claire, is trying to kind of set her up to say the wrong thing. She's like
constantly having digs at her, as you said. There's
trying to make out she's a racist.
Yeah, there's an infamous scene of charades, which I thought it was going to rip my skin off. It was,
it's very painful.
But again, they all play it really well. Again, as you said, Rachel McAdams is setting up Meredith as implying that she's racist. Yeah, she's not. She's just very buttoned up, and she doesn't feel like she can relax around these people. No.
And I don't blame her. But then she, at the dinner table, the most excruciating dinner. This is the bit that if you get through it, you're onto the magic. But they have an excruciating Christmas Eve dinner in which the gay couple are talking about adopting. They're a mixed race couple. One of them is deaf, and she is saying, or Claire Danes, I think her sister says, have you thought about what race you'd like the child to be? And the mother says that Diane Keaton's character, who was a bit of a wagon as well, she says something like, I wish all my boys were gay. And which I can hard relate to, by the way. And Sarah Jessica says, but of course you wouldn't actually wish that, would you? And they're kind of trying to make a joke of it and like giving her an out. And she just keeps doubling down. And she's like, nobody would wish for the child for them to endure being different. And eventually it just snaps.
Yeah.
And she flees this Christmas dinner. And the brother character played by Luke Wilson goes after her. And they've kind of had a spark. This is where things get weird.
You see it from the very start that he's like looking at her, and you're like, oh, maybe they know each other from a past thing.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well when I was watching it. I was like, oh, they know each other, and they're trying to keep it on the down low, or they didn't realise whatever, they didn't make the brother connection. But it seems to be that just like there's a physical attraction there.
Like the literal thunderbolt happens when they meet. So he goes after her, they go off to a bar together, and she kind of literally lets her hair down and dances, and the same thing has happened between Everett and her sister, Claire Danes, that when they locked eyes, they had a spark. And it's so obvious. Everett has a big goofy face on him. Claire Danes is mortified. All sorts of mad shit is happening. But basically we're in a sister swapping scenario. Sister and brother, wife swap scenario.
Perfect. Yeah. Brilliant. Merry Christmas.
And amongst all this, we know, but not everybody there knows, is that Diane Keaton's character is very sick. She has breast cancer. It's come back. It's terminal. And, you know, she's trying to get through one last happy Christmas without letting on that she's dying and that it will be her last Christmas. So then you can kind of understand why she's pissed off to have her son's new girlfriend that she's not mad about there with them, because you know she wants her family around her. She doesn't want this prim and proper weirdo.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially I think she finds it hard because before Julie, Claire Danes' character, the sister, comes, there's talk of Everett proposing, and he wants
the family stone.
He wants family stone. He wants that ring to propose to her. Diane Keating, obviously up the walls, is like, can we maybe please not do that? And again, ends up having to tell him that
no, you're not having it.
You're not having it. And then also later on is like, I'm very sick, hence why I'm acting like this, and I'm finding this really hard, and all that.
It's just such a horribly sad story set in the most beautiful house.
Yeah. you're like, wow, this is depressing. Where did I get that shizzle on?
That's it. Like, so I did film in college, and one of the first things you learn in film is about mise en scène, which is everything that you put in the frame. It's all very purposeful. Every single thing you're seeing on camera, you're meant to see. And in The Family Stone, the mise en scène is so beautiful. It's so like classic Connecticut waspy Christmas. So it's like, you know, red ribbons and poinsettias and fir trees, and everything is really gorgeous, and everyone looks really cozy all the time.
Oh, I want to live in that house.
Yeah, but even their clothes, they're all wearing like, you know, snuggly polo necks and like cashmere, and they're all fabulous. Yeah. But it's still so tense and awkward and weird that, you know, it's just such a juxtaposition of the kind of the beauty of the house and the awkwardness of the moment. But then to me, that's Christmas. So, you know, it's very human. Even though it's a weird story, it's not out of the realm of possibility. And to me, it's a very human story. Yeah. And that's why I kind of keep going back to it. It does something that I absolutely love. Okay. And a lot of melodramas, or, you know, women's films, as we'll call them, do this, in that they refer back to other films. Okay. So if you're familiar with Sleepless in Seattle, that refers very much back to An Affair to Remember. When Harry Met Sally, they talk about Casablanca a lot. In The Family Stone, it's Meet Me in St. Louis, which is one of my other favourite Christmas films. I adore it. And at one point, Sarah Clarke's character watches Judy Garland sing Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. And it's kind of the come down after the storm, and everybody kind of knows at this point that the mum is sick. It's going to be her last Christmas, and it's just very moving, I think. Yeah. And it's after that the fun picks up. Yeah. And Sarah Clarke's character is also dealing with her own thing. She's heavily pregnant, has a child. Her husband isn't there.
Everyone keeps being like, when's her husband coming, whatever. Well, like, just can't remember his name, he's relevant. But anyway, they keep asking when he's coming, and she's like, tomorrow. But then Diane Keaton cops and is like, he's not coming, is he? What's going on?
But he does.
Okay.
He does show up.
Does he?
Yeah, he shows up on Christmas Day. Because in America, you can get flights on Christmas Day. So I think the whole thing is that, you know, she is alone a lot. Okay. But no, he does. He shows up towards the end.
At the very end?
Yeah.
Well, sorry,
no,
spoiler
he definitely
here.
shows up.
Does he?
Yeah. I remember him in my head. He's got sandy hair. He's wearing an overcoat. He comes in and he kisses her. He hugs the child. It's the Christmas morning after Meredith has spilled everything on herself.
Okay.
He comes in around then.
Oh, potentially, maybe.
You have to watch it again.
Oh, fuck, I have to watch it again. Oh, my God.
Now, I could have dreamed that. Sometimes I'm not sure what's a dream and what's not. But no, she's definitely not by herself on Christmas Day. Okay. Yeah.
Well, that's good. I'm happy for her.
Yeah. And then there is a flash forward at the end. Yeah. And she has her baby. Yeah. And she seems grand. But again, he's not there.
Because that's right. He wasn't there for that.
He wasn't there at the very end. Okay. No. Yeah, I think you're meant to think that, she's made this decision to have children and she's parenting alone most of the time because he's a busy guy.
Okay.
He's working.
Yeah. He's working. Interesting. Okay.
The kid is an interesting device.
Okay.
Because
explain that.
She's the only child in, a Christmas movie, which is rare enough. And she's kind of used to meddle.
Okay, interesting.
Like at one point, she takes Meredith's shoes and breaks them slightly, and it's a device for Meredith to be a wagon in front of everyone. She kind of grabs the shoe back off the kid, and then at another part, Julie tells her that she's leaving and tells her not to tell anybody, and the kid is the one that's like, Julie's gone, like she said to say goodbye.
The ring on her finger,
she's used as a little narrative. Yeah, she has the ring, exactly. She has the family stone on her finger because Julie gave it to her. There's a very strange scene where Everett makes Julie try on the ring that he's going to give to Meredith, and it gets stuck.
That bizarre. Again, Everett.
What?
Yeah, strange fella, like.
Like, you're engaged.
Yeah.
Would you, like, if your fella had put your ring on somebody else to try it on beforehand?
No, he'd be dead.
Yeah.
He would be dead. And there'd be no engagement and I'd be in prison. Exactly. Rightly so. Like, absolutely not.
Especially her sister, who you clearly fancy.
Especially her sister. And, like, everyone, you see them all, like, fawn over her and fall in love with her. She's a bit more
Julie.
artsy. Yeah. She's a bit more liberal.
She says things correctly.
Yeah.
she
Definitely
asks
that as well.
the right questions.
Yeah.
Whereas Meredith just... She's a terrible case of foot and mouth disease, and they're very different as sisters, but you can see as the film goes on, as Meredith kind of unwinds a little bit, they're not quite so different.
Yeah.
But she has this thing in her head that everyone sees her as, I think she says, this bitch from Bedford, Connecticut.
Yeah.
And that's...
Bigoted bitch from Bedford, Connecticut.
From Bedford. And yeah, that is kind of what you see at first. But you know from the get-go that she's really sweet. She's just... She's a career gal. She has this vision for her life, which involves a handsome husband. There's one really cringe scene near the beginning where her and Everett have had a little spat, and then they're looking in the mirror together, and she says, look at them. As in, look at us, like we're so good looking together. Which they are.
They are.
But in a buttoned up, waspy way.
Because see, this is the thing. Obviously, she ends up with the Luke Wilson brother. Yeah. I kind of feel like they're too similar looking to be together.
I get that. Yeah. They look like if you were to draw a corporate couple.
Yeah.
Circa 2005.
Yeah.
And then when she physically lets her hair down in the bar, you can see that she's actually a fun gal.
Yeah.
And she's just not letting herself be, because maybe in 2005 to be a businesswoman working in, all over the world, she talks about Hong Kong and Asia, and maybe you had to present a certain like buttoned up figure with your briefcase and your pointy shoes. But it's such an anti-SJP role for her,
because this is her first role after Sex and the City finished as well.
Yeah,
she's brilliant, and she was nominated for a Golden Globe for it.
She's excellent in it. And I love her in The First Wives Club.
Yes.
But she's playing a raunchy, sexy bimbo in that. And then, obviously, we all know Carrie and we have our feelings about her. But generally, everyone kind of has this warmth towards Sex and the City. So then for her to play this completely different character, it was brave. It was great. And she has had a few flops since. And
we could probably do a whole SJB series.
We actually could do a whole
Failure to Launch.
Yeah, failure terrible.
Yeah.
Dread.
Shocking.
And I really should have liked that, because it's right in my wheelhouse. Crappy rom-com. She looks fabulous in it though. God
she
bless
looks
her.
great.
Fabulous. But yeah, do you know what? I saw Failure to Launch. I was living in Italy. This sounds ridiculous. I was living in Italy for 3 months to learn Italian for my degree.
Yeah.
Because they make you go and live in Italy for a while. And I went to see that dubbed in Italian cinema, and it was actually better.
Says it all, girls.
Because it just seemed more outlandish, dubbed in Italian. It was
I'd love to hear Matthew McConaughey's Italian voice actor.
Dreadful. And like Bradley Cooper's in that. He plays a supporting character.
Yes,
yeah. Zoe Deschanel. Terrible film, but very interesting from a pop culture point of view. But yeah, she had lots of flops. She did that show Divorce on HBO. That was.
I feel like the critics like that though. Did they?
It just wasn't very interesting.
Yeah, okay, fair.
It had a great premise and a great cast, but it never took off. It never ignited.
Failed to launch, if you will.
It failed to launch. There you go. That's why you're a podcaster, Fionnuala Jones.
That's it.
But yeah, she's had a very interesting career. She's in some of my favourite films of all time, like First Wives Club, Hocus Pocus.
Of course, yeah.
But this was a really unusual choice for her, and she did it great. She rotted me for a good half of it, so well done.
Who's your favourite character, and then who would be the character that you relate to the most? Potentially they're the same, maybe they're not.
My favourite character is the dad. Okay. I never know this man's name. It's a funny name. Craig T. Nelson. I just remembered it.
Stunning.
I think he's in Blades of Glory. I think he's the coach in Blades of Glory, the ice skating coach, because in my mind he's always wearing ice skates.
I haven't seen Blades of Glory.
Checking.
Adam's checking. Perfect.
I really like him as an actor. He's very reassuring, and he's the most level-headed and kind Family Stone member. He's the one that's urging everybody to be nice to Meredith, and he gives warm hugs, and he's a bit of crack. He smokes weed with Luke Wilson. He just seems like a really lovely man, and it's terrible. You're really feeling for him because he's losing his wife. And they seem to have a great relationship, seem to be really close. They're sexy. They have sex.
He is the coach in Blades of Glory.
So I'm not imagining him wearing ice skates.
No.
That did happen.
That isn't a dream. That wasn't really.
And maybe I relate to that character the most as well, because I'd like to think that I aspire to be like that, to be kind and warm and nice.
Are you a bit of a mediator at Christmas?
Yes, absolutely. I'm an only child and I'm a woman. Sorry, I think.
So yes, Fionnuala,
absolutely. I absolutely am, yeah. But I mean, I can be bitchy, so I can relate to Rachel McAdams' character as well. She's kind of intellectual but in an artsy way, and she doesn't wear a lot of makeup, so no, actually I can't relate to her at all.
You're like, I take that back. Sorry.
No, completely take that back. Yeah, I think I am maybe the mediator, maybe the go-between kind of gal. So yeah, I'll take that. I'll relate to Ice Skating Dad.
We love Ice Skating Dad. As you mentioned, it wasn't a total flop. It did make money. So the budget was $18 million and it ended up making $92.9 million at the box office. But as you mentioned, critics didn't really love it. It's at 53% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, which all good films are.
Yeah, and as I always say in this podcast, Rotten Tomatoes, not necessarily the best.
An arbiter of taste.
Exactly. But I think the main thing, I could read loads of reviews here, but the main point I've taken from a lot of the reviews and a lot of the critical consensus is, tonally, it's very weird, a bit jarring sometimes. How do you respond to that, and how do you convince people to maybe go back to it if they felt like that maybe first watch?
Yeah, like I said, you have to push through the pain to get to the good part, right? To get to the Christmas magic, and then there's more pain at the end when Mammy dies. But that happens off screen. There's actually, I try and convince people because there's some really funny set pieces in it. So there's a whole thing with Meredith making breakfast that she normally makes in her family home. Now, I don't know, is this an American thing? I find it really strange to just go to somebody's gaff for Christmas that you've never met.
Yeah.
Isn't that a bit strange?
Intense.
Right? So she's going, I think they're all in the same, I think they're all in Connecticut or that kind of region. But she's choosing not to spend Christmas with her family and to spend Christmas with these strangers and her relatively new boyfriend.
Having only met the sister previously.
Yes, once. And took her to a nice restaurant and she was a bitch. And she has this whole thing that she's making the Morton family strata. Now, I have Googled this recipe every Christmas, but I've never made it. Maybe this will be the year. But basically, you cut out white bread, you cut like shapes out of it, and you layer them with egg and like spices and mushrooms and savoury things. And put loads of cheese.
Oh, see, I was thinking kind of bread and butter pudding vibes.
No, it's savoury.
Okay.
You put a fuckload of cheese on top and you bake it. It sounds delicious.
The savoury version sounds delicious as well,
Everett is allergic to mushrooms, right? So that's the first thing. His family are all like, Everett's allergic. And she's like, I didn't know. So she's really funny. Like Sarah Jessica Parker is really, really funny in it. And then the strata becomes a thing. And at the kind of height of all the excitement, she spills 2 trays of strata all over her fancy blouse and shoes. And that's the bit when everything just breaks, when everyone starts feeling really sorry for her and she's able to sit on the floor covered in goo and laugh at the horrible
Keating,
situation.
Like, laughing at her, and she, like, Sarah Jessica Meredith initially sobbing and like you're not so perfect yourself.
She says, you're so mean, you're the worst one, she says to Rachel McAdams, and she's so right. But like, Diane and Rachel are both like, you're right, we've been absolute bitches to you. And I think there's a lot of physical humour, and Sarah Jessica Parker is really good at physical humour. Do you know that she's a ballerina?
I didn't. Oh my God.
Sarah Jessica Parker is a ballerina.
Makes sense.
She's a musical theatre kid. She played Annie on Broadway when she was 8. Like, she is a very physical person. And when you think about Carrie strutting down Fifth Avenue in her shoes, that takes a physicality, a certain physicality. And it's the same in First Wives Club. I remember she's like shirking her leopard fur off her shoulder at one point. She's a very physical actress that people don't really give her credit for. And I think it's these pockets of humour throughout that kind of sustain the film. Stops it from getting too awkward. But I've seen people get to the Christmas dinner where, Meredith's accused of essentially being a bigot and being like, you have to switch this off. Like, my own husband is like, I'm cringing too much, please stop. But it's just, I think as well, like I mentioned, the look of the film keeps people watching it because it's beautiful. And it's very old school. Like the opening credits, it's like Meet Me in St. Louis. It's like classic. There's like a classic drawing of a Christmas bell and upbeat jingle jangle music. Like it's you're right. Tonally, it is all over the place. But once you get through that tricky part, I think you're onto the home straight of actual emotion. And there's a really beautiful scene in which Meredith proves that, you know, she has got a heart, in that she has found a photograph of Diane Keaton. I think her name is Sybil.
Yeah, Sybil. Yeah, Sybil.
She found a picture of Sybil pregnant. It's obviously one of Diane Keaton pregnant in real life in like the 70s or 80s. And it's a gorgeous black and white photo, and she's framed it for each of the children and for Sybil. And she has no idea that Sybil is sick, so she doesn't know how meaningful this is. And I think that's the bit when everybody softens towards her, and it's very emotional, and you realise this is her last Christmas, and she's not going to be around, and it's been absolutely chaotic. But maybe that's how things are in the Stone household. Maybe that's normal. Like they're not, you know, a clappy, happy family all the time.
Yeah, and Christmases aren't always
always perfect, and you know, nothing is. And I think going into Christmas with the expectation that you can make it perfect is a lot to live up to.
You're setting yourself up for failure.
It's
I
just go for nice.
Yeah.
Nice is great.
Go for grand.
Yeah.
Go for absolutely fine. Yeah.
It's just one day and then it's over, and then you eat all week.
Would you be a big Christmas person anyway?
I am more so now as I get older. I think since I met my husband and fell in love with his family, thank God they're nothing like the Stones. They were so warm and welcoming and amazing. And my family, I'm an only child, and my parents have bonded spectacularly with his sister and mother, to the point that, this is a weird offshoot, but it just goes to show, my sister-in-law is getting married, and she is making her wedding dress out of my dress, my mum's dress, my mum, and her mum's dress.
Oh, I'm so
That's how close we are.
That.
Yeah, and it's amazing. It's very my sister-in-law.
Sustainable queen.
So she is the queen of sustainability. You would love her. But they just kind of have made Christmas really fun, because growing up as an only child, like, I loved it. I had two cousins I was really close to my grandparents. But you know, there was those kind of few years in between when I was an adult. But, you know, I wasn't really enjoying Christmas because I was just going home for a couple of nights and like going to the pub, going to the local, and I just wasn't really loving it. I was kind of by myself. And then when Joe's family and my family blended so beautifully, it became really fun. And then when I bought my house, I got really into decorating it. And I think, maybe the last 7 or 8 years, I've become a real Christmas hun. Like, I've always loved winter. Love the dark nights, love the cold because I'm always sweating. And yeah, I'm full Christmas hun right now.
Love it. Me too.
Which I'm living for, to be honest.
You speak so beautifully about your own family, which is at odds with, obviously, the dysfunction of the family Stone and the family that we meet in Reality Check, your book, which is out next year. How did you find that process of creating that family when they have so much going on? And can you tell people a little bit about who we meet in Reality Check?
Yes, so Reality Check it's predominantly about a woman named Portia. She is 37, 38, and she is the daughter of an Irish reality star, basically, in Los Angeles. So if you can imagine her mother being an amalgamation of Lisa Vanderpump, Kris Jenner, maybe a bit of Celia Holman-Lee thrown in.
Yes, I very much got that, yeah.
Because she's very Irish. She's from Kerry, and she's kind of Irish the way Lisa Vanderpump is English. They kind of make a thing of it.
Yeah, proud.
You know?
Like proud.
Absolutely.
Front and centre.
Totally.
Yeah.
And we don't have an Irish Real Housewife. We don't really have, you know, any kind of older Irish reality stars at all. We have the wonderful Daisy Kelleher on Below Deck. But yeah, in terms of the Housewives universe, there was rumours for a while we were going to get Claudine Keane on Beverly Hills because she's best friends with Dorit.
Yeah.
But
will it
that
ever
never
happen,
happened.
do you think?
No, I don't think she wants to. I've asked her about it. She's like, I'd be boring. So yeah, I
mean, fair, because you don't want to sign up and then the worst thing you can be is boring to a fan.
Exactly.
We saw it with poor old Teddy Mellencamp. But anyway, I digress.
But that's where the idea came from anyway. It was, you know, what if we had an Irish Real Housewife? What if her daughter was kind of out of the spotlight but obviously very much associated with it? And then she has a sister who's slightly younger than her who was a model when she was younger, kind of the Agnes Dean era. And she is now a kind of mommy goop style blogger, a lifestyle influencer. And people buy her nipple pads and her vagina crystals and listen to everything she says. And it's a book about kind of the three women going through crisis at the same time and not really fully understanding the other's crisis. they're really interesting because I didn't know that I could write a sister relationship because I don't have a sister.
Yeah.
I have a sister-in-law and she's amazing, but the way it just came out of me, I didn't mean it to. Do you know what I mean? The story just kind of very naturally flowed. I had the kind of points that I wanted to hit along the way, and then as I wrote these characters, they became so real that sometimes I think Desdemona Daniels is a real person, and she's the mother, and yeah, they just became so real to me that I was able to imagine this relationship. And it's kind of the sister relationship is kind of one I'd love to have, I think, and one that I half have with my sister-in-law, and that, you know, we're not related but we're very close. And yeah, just their family dynamic I found really interesting. You know, the mother's been married a few times. She has a much younger daughter, a teenage daughter who's a bit of a nightmare. She's a TikTok wannabe, and she's had this incredibly strange life where she's grown up from birth, not just from, you know, being a young child, from birth on camera. And yeah, I absolutely loved every second of writing it and of the process, and I'm dying for it to be out in the world. It's out the first week in May, and I can't wait for people to read it.
I think it really comes across on the page that you enjoyed writing it because you are such a fan, and I think that's so important. It's because I think it's really easy to write a story but not be, how do I phrase it, like you're not in the world, and it's very obvious then from reading it. It's like you're coming at this from an outside perspective, which is fine, but it makes it like less authentic, less believable, whereas this, it's dripping with you and your understanding of the world.
Right,
and
thank you.
No, I genuinely, like, if you're a reality fan, we were talking about this off mic, you love it, like you'll inhale it.
It's kind of a bit of Kardashians, bit of Housewives, kind of amalgamated, because I love both.
Yeah.
I've been a long-term Kardashian superfan, and then I only really got into the Housewives during lockdown. I was editing Stellar magazine at the time from home, which was a very strange experience because a lot of your time when you're editing a magazine is spent away from your desk, meeting people and going to events and being at photo shoots. So I had all of this time that I'd never had before. So I started watching it, and I must have watched thousands of hours. I think I watched 40 odd seasons of Housewives.
Yeah.
And it just ingrained itself into my brain so much, and I think that shows because it was core research, like, and I wasn't watching it with writing the book in mind. It was just something I enjoyed so much that when it came to thinking of a story, I was like, well
this is obvious.
Obviously I'm going to write about this. And I'm obsessed with reality TV. I always have been, and working as a magazine editor, I know a lot about it. I've interviewed a lot of people over the years. And I went to BravoCon last year in New York, and that made it into the book in the form of V-Palooza. The network that Desi shows on is called the V Network. And yeah, that experience is pretty much exactly how it was. My friend Patrick and I kind of found our safe spaces there because it's very overwhelming. Like, at one point I was quite hungover and I was just shouting, I'm overstimulated. This is a lot. Yes, it is a lot. But anyone who watches housewife shows or who likes reality TV, I think they'll find that it's quite accurate.
Yeah.
And, you know, a mutual acquaintance of ours, Laura DeBarra, is a huge Housewives fan, and she's reading it at the moment, and she's texting me going, your descriptions are great. She was like, would Desi not be wearing Tom Ford in this instance instead of Roland Murray? And I'm like, you know what, Laura, you're right. And luckily I can change stuff like that still at this point because we're still a few months away. But yeah, it's kind of it's been a passion project, and one that I've, at this time last year, I knew that I had the book deal, but I had no idea how writing it would actually go. So this whole year has been a real, I guess, journey for me, discovering that I actually love writing fiction. I absolutely love it after 16 years of writing journalism. You know, and you'll notice throughout the book there's a lot of journalism in it. Yeah. There's features and there's interviews and there's kind of like, I love that, like, bulletins. As someone who grew up on Life magazine and seeing, you know, Desi on the cover of that, I'm just obsessed. I mean, and getting to read the interview as if I love that shit. I love writing that so much. And my dream now when it comes out is for Life magazine to let me cosplay Desi on the cover. Like, that is the actual dream. Please let me do that. Oh my God. We've got the Penguin Girls working on that. That would slay so hard. Fingers crossed. And you know, it's a romantic book, but it's not pure romance, and it's a family oriented book. I think it's quite funny. Like, I didn't know it could be funny. It is funny. It just kind of came out, and it doesn't really fit into one category at all. What do you think when you're reading it? Like, it's not a romance. No, definitely not. But it has romantic elements. Comedy, romance drama.
Kind of I was going to say a sitcom in a book, but there are more dramatic, obviously, storylines and important talking points, I think. Which
I mean, I just wanted it to be meaningful, and I wanted to write about something that's very important to me personally, which isn't often discussed, which is women choosing not to have children.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've always known about myself, that I never wanted to be a mother. And you just don't hear about it, really. We hear about it in passing, but you don't read books about it.
But I think reading that conversation of, you know, you're with someone and they may or may not change their mind or whatever, and they think you might change your mind as a woman, and I think it's really important to have that in print in this book and hear it spoken about like that in a scenario.
Yeah, and
really
I think
good.
that's what, you know, I think a lot of the media will pick up on that and stuff. I mean, it's not something that defines me as a person or as a writer by any stretch, but I think it's important to have conversations about decisions in life and making choices, and, you know, whether you change your mind or not, it's not really relevant. Like, people have been telling me since I was 18 that I'm going to change my mind. I'm now turning 38 and I haven't. And I think some people thought when I got married, when I met Mr. Right, that I'd change my mind. Haven't, you know. And if I do in 2 years, you know, some people be like, haha, I told you so, but it's highly unlikely. I only say that in, you know, the worst case scenario, that, you know, the hormones affect me to the point where, because people tell you that as well, they're like, you won't expect it, and then the hormones will come and you'll be mad for babies, you want to eat them. I really don't think so, but, you know, disclaimer, it might happen.
There you go. There you go.
It won't happen.
It won't.
Ma'am, it's not happening.
We have it on mic anyway. I can't wait to...
Truly, it's never happening. But I do have dreams where people are like, so you're 9 months pregnant, Tudge, so...
You're like, that's helpful now, isn't it?
Brilliant. Yeah. No, but it was important to me as a woman and as a writer to write that and have that be part of a much bigger story about this family who are all quite different but very close and have the same kind of hilarious lifestyle that is stranger than fiction, but you know, is their reality.
And I think it's not a lifestyle that people, like women in that industry, pursue either, you know what I mean? Like, there's very few child-free women, and I feel like, even look at Jennifer Aniston, the way we talk about her and the way we talked about her for years. Poor Jen. No, but bawling, crying. Like, so I think it's even more relevant to this story and more important, I think,
Yeah, and I mean, Portia's not me, and I'm not Portia. I think I'm more Desi than anybody, but there's elements of me in all of them. There's elements of people I know in all of them, and there's a fun kind of wider circle of supporting cast that are like a bit of comic relief, and like they're all an amalgamation of people that I know. And writing a book is writing fiction is really interesting, because you don't know what's going to come out, and you don't know how they're going to shape these people. But yeah, if you've done a good job, I think you'll feel like they're real, and that's how I knew when I was in the sweet spot, when I was like, oh, I wonder what David would think of this. And David's a fake person I made up. Maybe that's worrying. In its own way, maybe that's worrying.
Vicky, we simply don't have time to get into the fictitious people you're making up in your brain. But thank you so much for chatting to me. I will leave all details of Reality Check in the show notes. And just to say, for every author, pre-orders are so important. So important. Get them in. I'll link for as many places as possible. Before I do let you go, though, The Family Stone, what's your elevator pitch for anyone? I know we've ruined it for...
Yeah, absolutely.
We've spoiled it, but... Yeah. I don't know, anyone who's listened and who is the bah humbug side of it, who can't get into it.
Or if they're trying to sell it to somebody.
Or you're trying to sell it to someone else. It's your favourite Christmas movie as well, and you're trying to sell someone else to watch it. What do they need to know? What are you telling them?
It's about a couple going home for the holidays to a place that's not exactly hospitable to them, and the dynamics of a crazy family Christmas where most things go wrong, and it looks really gorgeous and you'll feel really Christmassy after you've watched it and want to wear a jumper and drink eggnog. Have you ever tried eggnog?
No.
It's disgusting.
What is it?
It's like cold, milkshakey, alcohol-y.
It's cold?
Yeah.
No. Absolutely not.
I think you know what, you can have it both ways. You can have it, but I've had a cold. No,
I definitely wouldn't be having a cold.
It's sweet and cloying, and you'd have to put a lot of booze into it to make it worth it, I think.
What booze is in it normally? Whiskey?
Some people just drink it non-alcoholic. Like, they just drink like milk. Like, you can put whiskey, you can put rum. Rum would be good, I think.
Okay.
Bit of tropical flavour in your eggnog.
Tropical milk. Yum.
Tropical Christmas milk.
Delicious. Okay, eggnog is a flop. Family Stone? Maybe a bop? I don't know.
Bop for me.
Yeah, I did enjoy it, but I could, when people were like, this is depressing, totally weird, I was like,
Absolutely.
I get it. I do get it. But that cast and the
Christmas,
performances,
guys.
that's Christmas. That is Christmas. You have been Vicki Notaro. Thank you so much for joining me on Flop Culture.
Huge thanks again to Vicki for rounding out the last episode of 2023 and making me watch a very strange film. But she was right about your once husband turning up at the end. Never has a man impacted my life less and mattered in a movie less. But she was right. So there you go. Sorry. I can't believe I ever doubted you, Vicki. And you know what she's also right about? Her book. It's brilliant. Please go pre-order Reality Check. It's out May 9th, 2024. Consider it like a future Christmas present or a New Year present for yourself. The best thing about pre-ordering books is that you can kind of like forget and then it arrives and you're smug, you know? It's great and it makes a huge difference for authors. And you're coming into the summer, holiday, beach read, stunning, gorgeous. I love that for you. Go do it now. And if you want to, all the links are in the bio. You'll be able to do it there. If my cajoling hasn't been enough, if you're still confused. The one thing I forgot to mention in the chat with Vicki when we were recording was something that had come up in my research a lot was how often the Family Stone features in lists that are centred around, you know, the best kind of queer / LGBTQ plus movies to watch this holiday season. And I didn't realise how like warmly embraced it is by certain members of that community, given the scene at the dinner table that myself and Vicki discuss, which is just, I mean, absolute masochism, I think, to watch it again and again. Salute to the people who do it every Christmas. I think you should be studied personally. But yeah, I mean, in other ways, you look at the casting and you look at the storylines and how progressive it was for early in those years. It's kind of mad. And the other thing I forgot to mention was the director, Thomas Bazooka. He also directed his next film after The Family Stone. He waited like 6 years and he was like, I need to come back with an absolute classic. And that he did because he came back with the film adaptation of Monte Carlo, starring, yes, Selena Gomez and Leighton Meester, which we actually just recently watched for the Bandwagon's Patreon, if you would like to hear all about that and what we thought about that film. If you can't get enough Family Stone content, I would also like to recommend another Patreon. Might make a good Christmas gift if you've left it very last minute and you are now resorting to subscriptions for things, which I still think is a good gift. I don't care. The Celebrity Memoir Book Club Patreon. I obviously love the main feed episodes. It's where they review celebrity memoirs. Their Patreon, they kind of go longer on long-form content, kind of more into their memoirs. It kind of depends week to week. And usually it's just a bit of chit-chat between the two gals, Claire and Ashley, the hosts. But the most recent episode, they actually did a rewatch of The Family Stone. And I thought, particularly Claire made a lot of compelling arguments around the fact that maybe The Family Stone shouldn't be considered as a Christmas movie, but it should just be considered as a family movie. And that it's a brilliant family movie. It just happens to be set at Christmas. And they kind of go into it in more depth as well. So, as I said, Celebrity Memoir Book Club, they are on Patreon. Go subscribe, go support the gals. Support independent media. We love it. We do love it, girls. In keeping with the spirit of Christmas, you know what? Nobody's top of the flops. Nobody's top of the flops this week. How could I? I'm not that much of a Grinch. I'm really not. But needless to say, we will be talking about all the flops of the year on this year's bonus episode, Top of the Flops 2023, which is coming to Patreon before the end of the year. It's patreon.com/flop culture, where you can get all your bonus episodes. Speaking of independent media, what's up there as well for this month? We just recently posted an episode around contemporary Christmas pop music with Sissy That Pod's Cian Sullivan, and he's a DJ as well and loves music, as do I. We talk about the hits of the 2010s, 2020s and the noughties, the Christmas pop hits that have come through, and we consider what it takes to become canon in Christmas music land. A great listen, if I do say so myself. So if you want to go over there, you'll get at least 2 bonus episodes a month. But this month, I think you're probably going to get 4, which is great. That's good. Lots of content for Christmas to listen to over this festive period. As always, We are on social media. It's at flopculture_pod if you want to keep up with us. I would really appreciate that. And the greatest gift of all, 5-star ratings. If you are so inclined, wherever you're listening. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, I will say if you leave your nickname in the review and you leave a 5-star review, I will be back in the new year with a personalised Bop or Flap recommendation for you on the next episode. And speaking of the next episode, as I mentioned, we are on Christmas break. We'll be back in the new year. Can I give you some hints for upcoming episodes? Yes, I can. We've got a one and done series from Netflix coming January 11th. And on January 18th, well, we might be trying to make fetch happen. I'll leave you with that. This has been Flop Culture. Happy Christmas. Happy 2024. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Have the most pleasant Christmas and New Year. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it so much. Floppy discs. I will see you in 2024. Goodbye.